sorry, the second November 7th document, if I can find the right page reference for you. Not that one. Oops. Nice if I found it right away. Page 17, I, J. You see it's all laid out in text boxes. Each one of those little boxes is one part of that motion. So where it says non-market change will be, there's a box beside it answering what that means. So I wanted to update this document and say, where are we at with that motion? So things like non-market change, surprise, it's not 50,000 of new revenue coming in, it'll be 20,000 of new revenue coming in. And inflation, I think I projected was going to be 1.5%, or what we call cost of living allowance. It's now at 1.3, I think. No, 2.3, sorry, it was 2.5 and now it's at 2.3. So new information has come in since I did this document, and I'd like to update that and bring it to council in the longer meeting that we have time for. This is my appetizer fly high tour. So, any more questions about that? Okay, so the third chunk that I wanted to talk to you about is the status and format of the core service review. And council last year asked us as a management team to do a core service review, and the reality is we talked a lot about it and we had lots of conversations about it, but we didn't get it to the point of writing a report or to figuring out exactly how to make it succinct and readable and understandable, and it seemed big and onerous. And I think in the last month, I think we finally picked a format that, for better or worse, is going to be a format that helps display what it is that is the core service review. And truthfully, it was Councillor Morris who said, well, all we want is tell us, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and what are the resources to do it? Which sounds simple, but the reality is we do many, many, many things, and it would be a very huge document, and I think that's what kept stymieing us, is how deep and how big to do a document. And being an accountant, I came up with a spreadsheet to answer what Councillor Morris said, is what are we doing, why are we doing it, and what are the resources, meaning how many bodies are doing it, and what are the dollars that are supporting it. And that can be quite easy in some areas of what we do to describe that in a line like this, but in others it's more words that are needed. So this format is very linear and it may not be as suitable as we hope, but it's one way of doing it. So what my vision is to have a double-sided page for each department talking about what it is that we do and why we do it. So I've given you one sample department, and that is legislative, which is council, mayor and council. So my vision on that department would be, what do we do? And list the things that we do, list how many people are in charge of that department, 7 people, that's 7 of you, and what are the resources, your dollar budget. And then have that comparison for 5 years to see what it looks like. And have that presented to council in the new year, when we do everything else in the new year, and have council then learn what each department does. So we're working on that. So that's that conversation. So are there any questions on that or any of the other things that I've said? I know it's really hard to do budget at 9 o'clock at night in a 30-minute conversation. No snoring, that's good. Oh, yes.
So you have a list of dates here.
Oh, that's a good thing. Thank
general.
you. Thank you, yes.
And I'm just making a list here, and I think we're bringing our jammies and sleeping bags and staying here for the whole month of January.
I think you're right.
Yeah, just that, I think the scheduling from what we've heard tonight, some of the things, the discussion about strategic planning, the orientation, the counselor school, the kinds of things that we need to introduce very early on as part of the whole budgeting process. We need to have a chance to kind of look at all those things in context and play them back to you. Not right now, but start picking off some dates that work, and working with Mayor Adler to really hone in on where his take is first, and then play that back to the rest of you. There's like as Councillor Morris says, there's hours worth of review there.
Okay.
So does the budget run from January to December, or is it
excellent
from
question?
June?
Yes. No, we are just January to December. So that's why I said we're wrapping up things pretty quickly right now, posting the final entries. The budget must be adopted by May 15th, so we do have a wall there. And as Councilor Moore said, you know, we're always slacking against that wall, and it's not a fun feeling because then we're making quick decisions that aren't necessarily the right decisions.
So how does it work? I mean, your
Decisions.
money, it comes in July 1st,
That's correct.
but
So,
you're already 6 months into the piece, aren't you?
we are, and so I'll be bringing something forward that is called a revenue anticipation bylaw, a revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw, things. And it basically says, in case June 30th is coming, we still haven't got enough revenue in, we may need to borrow money temporarily, and then pay it back on July 1st when cash starts coming in the door. I brought that forward last year as well as a precautionary measure, and we didn't end up using it. So
Who do you borrow from?
Municipal Finance Authority is traditionally who we borrow from.
Yeah.
So I have that document prepared, I thought I would bring it in January.
So,
Sorry.
the purpose of the presentation today was what, if I may ask?
To hand out some escargot and some, some appetizers, just to make new council aware of the work of the previous council in directing the management team in preparing the budget and in receiving information about the existing year. So I just wanted to make you aware of some documents that have already been provided, some direction that's been provided from council to the management team. I would have liked to have had longer time to show you how 2011 was developed and what it represented, and we will do that.
The management team is composed of?
The directors and the managers of the departments. So we have Kathy's on the management team, myself, Mr. Stelling. We've got a couple of them here tonight. Christine's here for Recreation Department, Library. Again, our financial statements are on our website and it's broken down by departments, so you should be able to see there.
Fine.
We'll bring more
The management team basically prepares the budget,
That's correct.
and then to what extent is council then involved in guiding or?
I tried last year to bring kind of a two-page summary of each department's budget compared to previous years, and we're projecting 5 years forward. We do a 5-year budget. There was some questions that broke down into more detail, so in the end we did bring more detail forward. But manager's job is to develop the budget, and council's job is to give us the direction and to approve the guidelines for the budget. So that's how I tried to approach it last year. So we'll see how this goes this year. Again, I'll still try to fly high on the budget and not have, you know, $312 for this expenditure and $4,000 for that expenditure. I'll try and bring department budgets to you. But, you know, it's up to you to provide that direction if you want to see details. My recommendation earlier to council in one of these documents is to have a finance committee, and I was pleased to hear the conversation about that tonight, because my thoughts were that if we move forward with the existing motion, which is to increase revenues or reduce expenditures, or 0 to 3% tax increase, that's going to be a challenge. It'll be an opportunity, but it's going to be a challenge because I know that there are some new costs that come in. We're building a second fire hall. I know people say it's a lean-to kind of building, so it's not going to have lots of costs, but it's got an extra telephone line in it. It's got new hydro going to it. We have some new costs. That's just one example.
Well, I probably understand that. When I have, not in this specific occasion, in general, I always have a problem if management basically runs it and board approves what management suggests. I hope that this council will actually give directions to instruct management what to do, rather than getting approval for what management considers appropriate. And I say that, in my opinion, the financial management of the municipality over the last several years has not been the greatest. And I do not blame staff or management for that. I blame actually councillors, and probably they're not that blameworthy, because they are not, it's not their expertise to deal with a $5 million budget, which is composed of many, many figures. And I would say we as a council will not do a proper job if we do not delegate that to people who understand money. And my hope is that we will have a small financial advisory committee which works closely with management, because my gut feel is that we will, not only in Bowen Island but worldwide, enter into fairly lean periods. And we better get used to it. We cannot just rely on ever increasing taxes, because we have already hit the affordability threshold on Bowen Island. And we have just attended a week in Victoria and dealt with all the other trustees, and the mood is very, very gloom. And it's all coming down to money. And we cannot just rely on non-market increase. There's virtually very little, if any, new development. Construction activity is low. So to rely on growth is not probably a very reliable base. So I don't want to be on a soapbox here. I think management should actually look forward to have a few people assisting them in shaping some. And I see very little potential to increase revenue, even if we do it by fees. It has to be paid. Whatever money comes into this coffers here is paid by Bowen Islanders, more or less. So we have to seriously see where can we save. And I have a great sense for value. I don't want to have money spent and 100,000 spent and nothing to show for. So that's probably my biggest regret, that we have spent over the years much money on reports, plannings, another exercise, and it's all gone, nothing to show for. So if I have one desire, and that's probably on the top of our strategic session, to get a few financially astute people, doesn't have to be a big committee, and then them meet with the management committee to get a clear assessment, so that we know what we are talking about or what we get presented. And my desire to the Chief Administrative Officer, I am on two committees, the Cove Bay Water System and the Sewer Committee. We used to have regular meetings and we knew what was going on. I think I can count the meetings we have been called for the last 2 years on probably less than one hand. That is not acceptable. It's absolutely not acceptable, and that's as soon as we lose control and we will pay for what's going on, then we tend to blame. And staff, and I can say that in all my years, we have very good staff. The failure happened here. So,
This is our first meeting with you.
yes, but I tell you, I will be a thorn in your side. So, if there is not a deep respect for taxpayers' money, everything else goes to the pits.